Hi everyone, and thank you for having me. I would like to talk to you about Elbit systems of genocide, which is a difficult task because Elbit Systems is a company that is not only Israel's #1 arms manufacturer, and we will go into that. It is a company that is basically its entire business model is based on apartheid and genocide. And going through the list of atrocities that it is involved in is a too long task for this afternoon. So I am going to go through the highlights, or in Elbit's case, the lowlights of humanity. But first of all, let me start with not a history lesson, just a framing, the correct framing of the situation. I'm sure that you're all familiar with this set of maps. I will not go into it much, but we have to understand that the Zionist project in Palestine, established at the latest in 1948, is not only a colonial project, settler colonial project. It's not only about the land, it is also the question of who are the people who are allowed to live on that land. What is the type of composition of the population on that land? And in the UN Partition Plan, for example, of 1947, the land of Palestine was divided into 2 territories. More than half of the land was given to less than half of the population. Most of them were newcomers, colonialists, who only had about 10% of the land in their possession, and they got more than half of the land. But all of that was simply, we can look at it as a very, very unfair decision by the UN. They had no right to divide the land to begin with, but even then, even with this very unfair decision, in that land that was supposed to be the quote-unquote Jewish state, those colonialists, those newcomers to the land, were supposed to share the land roughly in equal quantity with the others, the indigenous people of that land, 600,000 of them and 500,000 of the others. But that plus sign between the blue and the green numbers didn't make sense to any Zionist then. It doesn't make any sense to Zionists today, because inherent to the Zionist thinking and practice as was implemented in Palestine is not only about creating this settler colonial, ultranationalist, I would say fascist entity in Palestine, but inherent to that is also the notion of exclusivity, of creating a place for us and only for us. And the only way to achieve a place that is for us and only for us in a place that is already inhabited by other people is either drive them away from their land or kill them all. It's either ethnic cleansing or genocide. I don't know of any other option. It started with ethnic cleansing, which hasn't stopped to this day, and now we see the next stage in that, which was there all along. It was baked into this project all along, and this is this horrible genocide that we're witnessing these days. Elbit Systems is not only Israel's #1 arms manufacturer, it is part of that system, it is part of that settler colonial mechanism, and that notion of exclusivity, that notion of bringing about basically either ethnic cleansing or genocide is also baked into the rationale and the business model of Elbit Systems. No time, I'm going to whiz through this, but this is a quote from one of the architects of the Nakba who says there is no room for both people in this country. After the Arabs are transferred, basically, they have no place here. And this was already said in 1940. And if you think that this is a matter of the past, it's not. These are recent polls of Israeli society saying the very same thing today. Elbit produces everything from small weapons, ammunition, even the adapters to the rubber-coated steel bullets that myself and other activists have been shot at. Some have been even fatally injured by them. To other large munitions, to drones, UAVs, you name it, to weapons like white phosphorus and cluster munition, which are illegal to be used in civilian areas, which have been used in South Lebanon and Gaza. And Elbit also leads the market, leads the world in the field of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, and other autonomous vehicles. Again, I'm going to skim through this, okay? I spent a year researching Elbit because basically I went to smash up their headquarters in Bristol, UK. A few weeks ago, actually, that site was permanently shut down. But after that, I spent a year under house arrest, so I had a lot of time to research into Elbit. There's much more to be said than I can tell you today. The most important part, I think, the greatest contribution of Elbit these days are these autonomous vehicles, autonomous tools. And when we talk about the concentration camp of Gaza, which has been turned into an extermination camp, the entire perimeter of that concentration camp has all these autonomous tools, land vehicles with weapons on them, the fence itself, which is a highly militarized fence with remote-controlled weaponry. Obviously, the UAVs that, to quote the Israeli Air Force commander, he said that they have tiled the airspace of Gaza. There is not an inch of that airspace that is not being monitored heavily 24/7. There are 8 squadrons, UAV squadrons in the Israeli Air Force. 80% of the flight hours of the Israeli Air Force are done with these UAVs. 4 of these squadrons are, 3 or 4 of them are Elbit Systems UAVs. So, when we mentioned Francesca Albanese's report, when she wrote a report recently about the economy of occupation to the economy of genocide, I would change that a little bit, because occupation is not the goal. It's just some interim stage, some kind of inconvenience along the way. The goal is that goal of exclusivity. And the economy is entirely based on apartheid. This is how that state was founded. The Zionist race state, which is a race state by design, was founded on the basis of apartheid. Every single Israeli law is an apartheid law, from the very first one that was legislated, the law of return. I think you recognize these people. I doubt if the judges in The Hague do, but they should. You see, and that quadcopter that you see is an Elbit quadcopter. And in 2018, during the Great March of Return, when Palestinians were demonstrating along the fence of that concentration camp, demanding the right to go back home across the fence in the rest of Palestine, 80% of all Palestinians in Gaza are refugees to this day. When they were demonstrating along the fence, basically the Israeli army had an issue with how to control them, how to disperse them, how to kill them, and they approached Elbit, as they usually do, and Elbit basically tailored this solution for them, and they used these quadcopters in order to carry tear gas grenades and cover the whole area with tear gas. The very same drones or quadcopters, which were retrofitted to carry these grenade launchers, to carry the tear gas grenades, are now being used in Gaza to shoot live grenades, to carry, as you see, birds of prey, to carry automated machine guns, also to drop these little bomblets, these little bombs. They fly over a target, drop the bomb, and then return to base. These very same quadcopters were also found in the site in the UK, in Bristol, when some activists smashed their way inside. I'm going to, as I said, whiz through. This is about the cooperation of Elbit Systems with the Israeli army. It's from Israeli television. The translation is not important right now. I just want you to see what we are dealing with. This was talking about how they cooperated in 2018. This is their promotional video about the same thing. This is the outcome of that tight cooperation that exists between Elbit and the Israeli genocide forces. I can tell you that the Israeli army has these cute names for these devices. They have the different ones. Stink bombs, the ones, then they each have their cute names. Finally, this is what is happening in Gaza today. These are the same quadcopters. We're moving on. In the UK, where there used to be 10 operating sites of Elbit systems, over the course of a few years of direct actions, 4 of these sites have been permanently shut down. Here is the Israeli ambassador to the UK during the inauguration of their facility in Bristol. The same facility, by the way, that you saw earlier where these quadcopters reside. And this is what she has to say. This is in English.
I'm here in Bristol for the opening of the new Elbit factory, and I'm very, very proud of the Israeli technology. Elbit is a defense technology company, Israeli, that based here in the UK, has factories in Kent and in Bristol. And I'm holding one of our really, really good night vision technologies that is really, really helpful to all our soldiers around the world.
To all of our soldiers around the world. Also, the British ambassador to Israel was also present there during the inauguration. If you think that this is a one-way communication, it is not. These very criminal regimes, including the British one, including the American, including the German, of course, are heavily, heavily complicit in all of that. And here is the CEO and president of Elbit Systems during the second week of the genocide that is taking place in Gaza. So this is almost 2 years ago now. This is what he has to say. This has English subtitles. He is congratulating his employees for their crucial work during this challenging time of supplying the Israeli genocide forces with what they need.
בשבוע השני של הלחימה. אני מסתובב הרבה, גם באתרים שלנו, גם אצל הלקוחות שלנו בצה"ל, ואני רואה אתכם מסביב לשעון. המערכות של אלביט מערכות נמצאים בלב הפתרון המבצעי של צה"ל, והמעורבות שלנו היא קריטית. התקשר אליי השבוע שר הביטחון וביקש להעביר לכם את תודתו ואת הערכתו. ושרים דומים קיבלתי גם ממנכ"ל משרד הביטחון ומכל חברי משרד הביטחון בראייה הרחבה.
The Israeli Defense Ministry thanks Elbit for their crucial work in this. Now, one would think that Elbit is the largest supplier of weapons. They not only produce the murder machines, they also literally test them on the bodies of the people of Gaza, and later on they sell it to the rest of the world as being battle tested. Not only that, they have their strong cooperation with the Israeli army. They produce per military requests. You saw that earlier, but they do more than that. Elbit itself is right now committing the genocide themselves. They have boots on the ground working together in tandem with the Israeli genocide forces, taking part in that. And they take pride in that. Actually, there's even a podcast of Elbit employees saying, we don't sit in the office all day. Our job is exciting. We actually go to the field. We work with the soldiers. And this is a sense of national pride. So this is a screenshot from a censored video, a video that Elbit put up and then removed, but I managed to get a copy of that, where they have talked about how they incorporated the Hermes 900, the flagship UAV, during the course of the so-called war in 2014, known as Protective Edge. Sorry. So during the course of the so-called war in 2014, known as Protective Edge, they have introduced this premature drone into the war scene, which was still under development. And therefore, Elbit personnel were there, carrying out every takeoff and every landing, while next to them, the Israeli Air Force drone pilots were dropping the bombs and carrying out the rest of the mission. Only a year later, in 2015, was the first solo mission of the Israeli Air Force with this vehicle, where Elbit was present, but they never touched the stick. And then they also had a celebration at the Israeli Air Base, thanking Elbit for their strong cooperation. This is what the Israeli Air Force commander had to say in 2015, congratulating Elbit who were there, present, and all the others. Again, I don't want to waste too much time, but you can read that. I'll just read the highlighted part. The unusual process that they have that led to the reception of a new aircraft which has already been used by us operationally. They have used it for a whole year during Protective Edge when it was introduced to the so-called war scene, and for a whole year later, and then a year later, it was the first time that it was officially incorporated into the army. On the 8th day of Operation Protective Edge, you may remember the story of the Bakr boys. The boys that were targeted while they were on the beach in Gaza. 4 children were murdered, 4 were injured, all from the same family. And the story is that actually I read the military investigation into that incident, and the only reason that there was an investigation is because there was a French television crew that filmed these boys. This is a still image from a video that actually became viral at the time. And because it went viral, the military was forced to investigate. And in the investigation, they talk about the 2 Elbit UAVs that were in the air, the Hermes 450 and the Hermes 900, the one that was basically still under development. That means that Elbit personnel were there during the murder of 551 children during the 51-day assault on Gaza, during the liquidation of 89 entire families during the 51-day assault on Gaza. Rotax, mentioned here, is an Austrian engine manufacturer, which is the sole manufacturer of these engines. And according to Elbit themselves, the engine is the heart of the machine. Everything about the UAV is built around the engine. It is of crucial importance. And Rotax BRP, which is a Canadian, Austrian conglomerate, they solely produce them in Austria. Talking about neutrality, by the way. So, if you thought that was bad enough,